Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important and useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. And I can't thank all of you enough. Our listeners have grown organically because of all of you, many of you listening to our show regularly or individual podcasts, sharing them with family and friends. And I can't thank you enough. Most of you in our studies are listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We're on all the various stations. So again, thank you so much. And I do know why you are listening to the show and sharing with others, because we have just wonderful guests and provide a great education. I'm not going to disappoint you today. We have someone who I'm sure most of you know, John Tesh. From John's early days, his path to success was anything but certain. After overcoming challenges such as being suspended from college and homelessness, he began a career in journalism, including hosting CBS News and co-hosting Entertainment Tonight. John transitioned into music, creating the successful television special John Tesh, live at Red Rocks, and earning 6 Emmys, 4 gold albums, and an induction into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. He also composed the iconic NBC Sports basketball thing, Roundball Rock. In 1999, Tesh launched the self-syndicated The John Tesh Radio Show, Intelligence for Your Life, which became internationally successful. Shortly after, he published his memoir, Relentless, details his triumph over terminal cancer, highlighting his determination and grit. So, John, again, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. It's an honor to have you on.
It's an honor to be on. It's an honor to be a boomer. It was funny. I was just talking to my wife because we have Gen X in our family, we have Gen Z, and we have Gen Alpha, our grandkids. And so my wife finally just exploded and she goes, okay, what are the ages? Can you put them up on the refrigerator? And so, so I figured out what it was. And then also went back to, to look at what the greatest generation, and which our parents were. And,
right.
And so it's, as I walk into the gym these days to pretend to work out, I look around and I'm the oldest guy in the gym. I'm like, when did this happen? But it is an honor to be.
I feel like I'm the oldest guy in anywhere I go.
And now it's like a contest to see. All right, I have a friend from Australia, and I'll call him and say, "How you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm above ground, John." I'm like, "Okay, that's it. That's the baseline."
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's. Well, I'd love to hear more about. So many people tune into your radio show, but those that haven't, tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I've always been thirsty for information, and it really started for me when I ended up at WCBS in 1976. I was a news correspondent there. Getting there was this ridiculous trip through local newscasts, and you mentioned being homeless. I was asked to leave college after I forged a professor's name on a drop ad card. I was trying to drop out of textile chemistry and get into the media, and I got busted, and so I got asked to leave. I was suspended from college, and then my parents threw me out of the house. My dad threw me out of the house, and so
that's between you. The difference between you and me. You got caught. I didn't.
That's what I'm saying. So all my fraternity brothers were like, just sign the professor's name. I dropped like 5 courses. I was like, okay. Yeah, and I got anyway. I ultimately ended up at CBS, and one of the most valuable resources that we had there in New York was the research department, and we were always going in there because they had to check our scripts and everything. And then even after that, and then going on to CBS Sports, where I covered kinds of like downhill skiing, the anthology events they call them, downhill skiing and figure skating and the Tour de France bike race. They would always send me, the research department would always send me these giant packets, especially for the Olympics. You had a book. I mean, it was a bound book like this just for one sport. history of the sport, pronunciations and all the names and everything. And then even when I got to Entertainment Tonight after that, the research department was massive, and I used to hang out there and when I'm checking my scripts and things like that. And so I became, thirsty for good information, good curated information. And after I sort of took myself, I was touring after I left Entertainment Tonight. I was touring, doing like 50 cities, for music tours, and we had an infant at home. My wife Connie Selick and I, and she's like, this isn't going to work. You got to figure this out. You can't live on the road anymore. So I thought, well, why don't I get back? Why don't I just do a few concerts a year and get back into the world of media? And I looked at the landscape, for the radio landscape, and there was love songs at night. There was like, the Howard Stern, the shock jock stuff in the morning, and then, but there really wasn't anything in middays of any interest at all. And the internet was in its nascency, right? It was just starting to come out, and people were like, oh, I can get all this information, but it isn't any good. So I thought, why don't we serve those people who were interested in really what happened was, sorry for the long story, but what happened was my wife, we were getting ready to go to bed, and we're getting into bed, and my wife looked at my side of the bed, and there were it was just like wires and connectors and things, all over the place on the side of the bed. She goes, hey, this is our sleep chamber. She called it our sleep chamber. What is all this junk doing here, And as a good husband, I decided I needed to cross-complain. So I looked at her side of the bed, and there were like all these stacks of magazines with sticky notes in there, like Oprah Magazine, Better Homes and Gardens, Prevention Magazine. I was like, what's all this? She said, well, these are all the articles that I'm going to get to, but I haven't had time yet. I want to read these articles. And I thought, wow, that could be a radio show. We could serve, and she was 35, we could serve this woman and people like her by taking these 5,000 word articles and turning them into 250 words, right? Rewriting them and putting them on the air between music, and we'll call it Intelligence for Your Life. And I shopped it around to the big guys like iHeart and Cumulus and all the rest of that stuff, and they said, this won't work, because I said it takes 10 researchers to do this, because that's what I was used to. And so they said, no, we won't do it. So we bootstrapped it. We went to like 6 radio stations and said, hey, we'll give you this for free. And I was writing it myself, and see what you think. And so, yeah, that was 25 years ago, whatever.
That's great.
And it just sort of word of mouth. And basically it was the 3 ways to shrink your waistline, the 2 ways to find your purpose in life, the 5 ways to be a better grandparent, it's grown up, we've grown up together, where now there's a huge listenership with baby boomers, and also there's some kids who listen as well. And baby boomers are the same people that come to my concerts,
Right.
And so it really is, and we stay, just like you, we stay close touch with the listeners who are telling us, what they need more of.
Yeah. So that leads me into my next question. I don't know if I have the information exactly right, but apparently you reached out to your listeners, kind of asking them what they want from you, I guess. And which kind of led into some new things. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, basically, you got it right. I mean, basically, now with the technology, they have this thing called typed form, which is, forms you can send out to people. It's a poll, basically. And so we have a healthy group of Facebook folks, right? Like 2 million people on our Facebook page who regularly share stuff, and you can see there what people are most interested in. But then we also have about 100,000 people on our email list, and so we sent out this form and said, "Hey, what can we help you with? What do you want more of? What could John teach you? That kind of stuff." And we put it out in multiple choice. Would it be more brain health, more memory stuff? Would it be health and fitness? Even fasting, things like balance, stuff like that. Because we had seen when we would put pieces on Facebook, or also videos, and also on YouTube, when we mentioned things like improving your balance, improving your memory, even finding your purpose in life, the power of gratefulness, things like that, we got those things really indexed high.
That would light up.
Yeah, exactly. And because as baby boomers, we've been through the challenges of our parents, right? And so I lost my parents early. They were smokers who came out of North Carolina. And my dad was a chief petty officer in World War II. And when everybody thought, it was just a regular thing to smoke. And so my whole family died of smoking related diseases, including my two older sisters who were 10, 11 years older than me. And so what we ended up getting from people who had taken care of their parents and who had seen, even dementia, cognitive decline, was, that was a pain point for people. How do I avoid that? What can I do? And so we started inviting more and more experts on our show, and then we launched another show with my wife Connie Selica, who was an actress for years, and it still is that, but it's called Intelligence for Your Health. And so she has interviews with these longevity experts, basically. And so the forms came back where it was what we thought it might be, which was a lot of memory, a lot of stuff about balance. I was surprised at how many people were looking to, and this was done after COVID, right? I was surprised at how many people were looking at finding their purpose in life, because you really think, okay, so baby boomers probably have got that. Well, when that, I call that an Etch-a-Sketch moment, among other things, COVID, where people are like, I don't like what my life looks like here. I'm going to shake it up and start over. And that's when the great resignation happened, right? So a lot of baby boomers, as you probably know, came out of retirement. They unretired and decided, I want to take another shot here. Right. And so if you were to bottom line in one sentence, what our audience is looking for, it's the next chapter. So they're looking for the next chapter in their life, and many of those they want to get there through the Word of God. Many of them want to get there through just straight on information. And one of the things that popped up as well was, I've always wanted to play the piano. I've always wanted, is it too late to start? And this really it lined up with what I hear after concerts many times. Is people will come up after concerts and we'll meet with like 30 or 40 people. We just hang out, me and the band, we talk to them. And it's like, oh my gosh, I took lessons for years, but can I start without learning how to read sheet music? And so I said, hey, I could probably teach you how to play, but I'll teach you the easy way, or easier way, the way jazz musicians learn, the way Jimi Hendrix learned, the way Paul McCartney and Billy Joel and Elton John learned. And that is just to use your ear. And so that course is called the John Tesh Piano Method. Learn how to play piano by learning my songs. No sheet music and no music theory. So because of technology, anybody can do that. You could teach knitting. You could teach, crafting. And so there are courses that we started. One is called Maximize Your Memory, which I teach with memory experts, and also How to Win Your Morning and the Secrets to Answered Prayers, and also the piano course. And these are the things that our listeners and our concert goers told us they wanted more of.
Well, there's, a couple of things relative to music, and I mentioned I've been in the industry for a while, and work with people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people who couldn't even talk. They were at that stage. But then if they did play the piano or they played some other instrument, wow, it's an amazing thing to see. And they could just start playing like they were young again. That's one part of it. The other part of it, of course, is and I'm sure, you've done all your research and you've got experts as well, but we've learned that, people say, well, they're nervous. They're nervous about getting some form of dementia, and I get questions all the time. I lost my keys. Does that mean, something's happening? I said, if you don't know where the keys belong, then that's concerning, But
or if you don't know what keys are, that's
right. You don't know where
also
keys are. That's it. Right. Yeah. Right. But challenging the brain is so important. So I commend you what you're doing because. I mean, I've said it myself. I never played an instrument, growing up. I never did. I was, played sports and all that sort of stuff. And I said, I want to learn how to play guitar, but it challenges the mind also. And so you haven't been doing it that long. So what kind of response are you receiving?
I just actually what we do is a lot of people will buy the promise. They'll invest in the course, and then you can see from the software, you can see who's starting and who's not, and how far they're how far along they're getting, and then, so you have to sort of send them an email and say, hey, just do 15 minutes today, that kind of thing, because it is, when you look at the like at the piano, it's 88 keys, and so it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Well, it's the same repeating, it's the same scale repeating over and over again. So it's really not, it's just a small math problem, But we talked to somebody just the other day named Sue Fury, and she had never, both her kids had learned how to play piano. She was 62 years old. And this is just like last week. And she said her husband heard her playing the NBA basketball theme. She heard her playing,
Yeah.
And he heard that in the kitchen. He comes running out and he goes, he thought she'd been struck by lightning or something. All of a sudden she could play piano, Wow, what is this? It's a superhero. And so she said that feeling of power and that's really how we talk to people about it, is that, it's a new superpower. You can walk into somebody's house. A lot of people have keyboards or pianos, and you can just sit down and you can play. You can start with a few bars of a song. You can play a song, And the reason I use my songs is because you can start there, because a lot of people will recognize those from other things that I've done. And then if you want to learn sheet music, that's fine as well. But the one thing that she said, which was really interesting, because I taught, my wife doesn't play piano either, and I taught her how to do what the course taught her, the online course. And she said, I got to go lie down. My brain is killing me. I said, no, your brain's not killing you. Your brain is activated, because when we try something different, even if it's driving a different way to work or brushing your teeth with your left hand, all these
Sure.
strategies.
Right,
That's what happened to Stu. Was she said, I could just feel my brain, because when you're using two hands, right, it's your hippocampus is just lighting up. You're using the left and the right side of your brain. And if you're not, this is nothing against reading music. Reading music is great, but if you're not reading music, then you're using your ears as well, right? And that's why there's so many baby boomers now who are getting into choirs, and they're understanding that the socialization of being in a choir and also blending in and trying to find the right pitch is so great for your brain.
Yeah. I have people on all the time who are experts in the field, and what you're saying, applies to music, but even going shopping, right? You go to the grocery store and you have this list. All right. He said, put away the list.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put it on the shopping cart and read the list and go, just put it away, put it in your pocket, to the absolute best you can of trying to remember everything that you needed. And then at the end, before you leave, take a quick look. But it sort of applies to a lot of things. Just use that brain. GPS.
That's really good. That's really good. And there's a book, as you were saying that, there's a book that I read years ago. It's called Moonwalking with Einstein. And it's a weird title, but it's a story of a journalist who decided that he was going to enter there's like a memory Olympics or something like that, and the memory championships. And so he got himself a coach, and part of the test is you have to be able to memorize a deck of cards in order, and it's, they give you the deck of cards out of order, and you have to memorize it. And so he actually won the championship. And what he learned was just exactly to what you said here is, there's a thing called, you create memory palaces. So if you remember in your mind right now, the first house you lived in as a kid, you can close your eyes and you can see every room in that house. You can see the planter or the vase or the TV remote or whatever there was in it. And what you do is, for example, if you're going shopping and you're trying to put together a list, you take each one of those things and you put it in a different place in your memory palace. In that it could be anything. It could be the first place you work too. And the more ridiculous the better. So for me, I walk into my house at Seabury Road in Garden City, and little steps with a handrail. As soon as you open up the door, there's a piece of furniture that's a Victrola, right? With people our age know what the Victrola is. A turntable. and it's usually playing music and spinning around with its
Right.
phone on there. So I said, like, okay, so I'm putting the skinny pop potato chips on the turntable, and it's spinning around. And then you go on to the next thing, which is the stairs that go up to my, to my bedroom. And on the second stair is Dots candy or something like Sideways, And so the creating those images in your brain creates a list, and the more you get used to it, the better it is for your brain, of course. So exactly what you said.
Yeah, good. So John, we're going to take I promise, just a quick break just to recognize our sponsor for 30 seconds here, and then we'll come back. I want to get a little more detail about the course, okay? So do you know anyone who may be concerned about an older driver? Well, Senior Care Authority's Beyond Driving with Dignity program is a facilitated self-assessment program for older drivers. This program has been designed to serve as a vital tool to facilitate older drivers and their families as they make appropriate decisions regarding the future of one's safe driving career. If the individual is a safe driver, an advisor will provide him or her with strategies on how to remain a safe driver as they progress through the aging process. If driving retirement is the appropriate decision, then the individual and their family are offered possible alternatives, resources, and a specific plan to ensure a smooth and successful transition from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. So to learn more, go to www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com or call 877-907-8841 to connect with a Senior Care Authority advisor in your area. We're back with John Tesh, who's well known, been CBS News, co-hosting Entertainment Tonight, Emmy Award winner 6 times, and but he's got a wonderful concept of a course of teaching piano. So we touched upon it earlier, John. Maybe you could just tell us a little more. What could somebody expect from this? What would be the steps for them to take?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me just react to to what you just said about driving. It's as an older person, it's I don't know what happened. You probably experienced this, and I live in Los Angeles. I don't know what happened after COVID, but people just got angry in their cars or something. I don't, it's like I actually let my wife drive because I'm saying, you know what, you're a better driver than I am, and people are just cutting us off all day. And so, if you're thinking about, if you're thinking, wow, I really want that power of driving, it's a different world.
Oh, it is
Again, it's a
Yeah.
different world out there. It's not like driving in my Mustang in high school with no seatbelts,
Well,
So
it's
anyway,
interesting. We don't have to get into all the detail, but this particular program that I talked about was developed by a highway patrol cop.
Ugh.
All right, who unfortunately had the task of having to knock on a family's door to say their loved one was just killed in an automobile accident. They kind of got to him, and he realized that not all, but many accidents could have been the cause of an older driver who shouldn't have been driving. And that's why it was developed. So anyway, that's a whole nother story, but it's so true. Things are kind of crazy on the road right now. So
yeah, for sure. Where we were talking about the piano course. The whole idea is really just to, Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step in faith. And we talk a lot about on the radio show about setting micro goals, because there's so many books out there now that talk about, you got to set a goal and you got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and you got to go after it. And you got to be relentless, and what I've learned from switching careers several times. I mean, I've had, I think it's gone now, but if I had growing up, I had really terrible ADD where just everything was interesting to me. And so for me, risking and just taking, different jobs and stuff like that and changing careers wasn't a big deal, because it was just that those were the things that I was, really interested in. And I didn't have that much fear of doing that. But I think a lot of times when we're faced with the risk of starting something new, whether it's, I keep looking at the piano, playing piano or in your case, guitar, it just the task seems so big, right? And so what I tried to do with the piano course is just really break it down to what I call chunks. And so I having covered Olympic athletes for so many years, I did the Olympics as an announcer in '92 and '96, and also world championships and national championships of everything from gymnastics to bike racing and figure skating with Scott Hamilton. When you're with people at that level, you start to see a pattern, and the pattern is they're all at the same level. They're all at the same level mostly with their athletic ability, but what's going on in their brain is what differentiates them. And so a lot of them can actually visualize their task. They can see it. They can see themselves. I saw this when I was covering Franz Klammer, the great downhill skier from Austria back in 1982. Yeah, and I remember him, outside before the race, outside the start house, and he had his goggles on, he had his helmet on, and he had his gloves and poles and his skis on, all on, and he had his eyes closed, and he was just like this, and he was leaning in and leaning down and then going up like this, and then moving his poles, and his ski tips would go like this. And I asked his coach, I said, "What is he doing?" He said, "Well, he's skiing the course." While everybody else was actually doing practice runs, they were going down, and he took one practice run, and then he sequestered himself over by a tree, and he was doing this thing, and it was amazing because he said, well, he sees the course, he sees where his ski tips should be on gate number 2, he knows what gate number, how fast he should be going at gate number 3, he can see himself at the finish line, he can see his skis crossing the finish line, he knows what his time is going to be, and he can see himself on the medal stand, not on the bronze and silver, but on gold, and sure enough, the guy won the gold medal, and that's not the only reason he won, but visualization. And for me, I live in the Word of God, and so for me, being able to visualize my life, and I see myself as a 98-year-old now, and I'm just about to turn 72. And then mixing that with faith, because in 2015 I was given 18 months to live with a rare form of prostate cancer, and so my wife and I, who was my advocate, we combined the dual modalities of medicine and also of the Word of God and scriptures like Mark 11:23 and also Proverbs 18:21, which is powerful. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue," and if you can just get that, if you just get that proverb, you pretty much get everything, because we spend so much time speaking death over ourselves, speaking lack, speaking scarcity, speaking failure, that our subconscious mind and our heart hears those things. So I became a cancer patient when I was diagnosed. I talked like a cancer patient. I talked about my disease. I talked about my treatments and all the rest. I was a terrible dinner party guest. And when we landed on those scriptures, all of a sudden we realized that, wait a second, the true nature of God is health and healing and wellness. And God doesn't put sickness on us. That's the other guy, the guy who lives down below. And so once I realized that I need to be really careful about what comes out of my mouth. And so that you can apply that to anything. So since we're talking about the piano, it's like, oh, I've never learned how to play. I can't learn how to play. It's too much for me.
You wrote a memoir, Relentless, right? And that
Right.
was about your bout with cancer. And so tell us a little bit more about that. And at the same time, we have a lot of listeners who could be going through something right now similar, or may have a loved one going through something, and just any input or advice you could give to them.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to be around people who are for you. They're one of the things that COVID taught us, and that isolation was, many of us, is how important family is. And husbands and wives were forced to spend more time together. We spent more time with our kids, with our family, and there wasn't as much going to work and being away for 8 hours a day. And so I think part of it is just understanding where you need, what your purpose is. That's really what the book is about, is and it's not all about a cancer journey. Is the cancer is sort of, that journey is titrated throughout, but there are things in there about taking risks, about massive failures in my life, about being really a man without a country, a man without a family, when my university decided that I was going to be thrown out for violating the honor code, and forging that professor's name on the drop ad card. I was desperate, but that didn't matter. And then my father, who threw me out of the house, and people are like, "Well, your dad was so mean." I said, "No, he didn't do anything that I didn't expect him to do. You know, he was a tough guy, and there was a line in the sand that we all had as kids. But really digging out of adversity is you can't. I don't think you can do it alone. You know, and I had a really strong family. All my family was with me, and a lot of reading too. You know, one of the books I would recommend to everybody to read if you haven't read it, and I've read it 3 times as I was going through chemo, is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, a Holocaust survivor, who was one of the few who did survive, right? And talking about how he became a leader in his quote unquote community, and realized that without purpose, he was not going to survive. And so if I could leave, you and anybody who's listening, watching, with anything, it is, you got to figure out what your purpose is, what makes you come alive, what makes you get up in the morning. And once you have that, and it was Nietzsche, I think, who said, once you have your why, you can endure anyhow.
That's great advice. So, we're unfortunately we're out of time, but if you could just let everybody know, is there a website that people could go to learn more about your piano lessons and the program that you've put together?
Sure, yeah, and you never want to say to a fellow baby boomer, unfortunately, we're out of time.
I'm glad you told me that. I'm glad you told me, because we're about the same age. So
because I got told that, back about 9 years ago, they said, "You're out of time, pal. You got about 18 months to live." Anyway, sorry about that. Just my last name.com, just Tesh.com. Everything we're doing is there. You can also find the podcast.
Okay, great.
But thanks a lot. This has been great. I know I ran my mouth a lot. You got to ask like 3 questions.
It was wonderful.
But I really enjoyed it.
But hang in there a minute. But I want to thank everybody for joining us on Boomers today, and thank you, John, for joining us. It was enlightening. And everybody, please be safe out there, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
All right, thank you.